Edmund Beecher Wilson was born in Geneva, Illinois in 1856. He enjoyed life in the country, discovering the natural world, and also developed an interest in music. As this love of music increased, he learned to play the cello, something he enjoyed for the rest of his life. In 1878, Wilson received his Bachelor of Philosophy at Yale University in Connecticut. There, he learned for the first time about evolution, heredity, and natural history. He then went on to Johns Hopkins, where he gained a PhD in biology. Starting in 1885, Wilson taught for several years at Bryn Mawr College in Pennsylvania, which was widely recognized as providing an outstanding and modern education for women, including in the sciences. In 1891, he accepted a professorship at Columbia University in New York, where he remained until he retired in 1928. There, Wilson taught about the latest research on cells with a straightforward and empirical approach. He pushed his students to explore questions and discover the answers for themselves. During this time, he began spending his summers in Woods Hole. His earliest work there focused on studies of embryos using Nereis worms, also known as clam worms, that reside in Eel Pond just outside the MBL. He looked at the formation of each cell during early stages of development, beginning with fertilization. He continued to observe and record exactly what each cell did during cell division for as long as he could observe individual cells. This meticulous work was to establish what's called cell lineage. Wilson also explored the role of each part of the cell that he could see through his microscope. Around 1892, Wilson began to pursue what many called experimental embryology. His work led him to realize the importance to offspring of factors inherited from parents through the chromosomes, factors later called genes. Wilson explored the roles of chromosomes that determine the sex of an individual by studying organisms such as Amphioxus, sea urchins, and various worms and mollusks. In 1895, Wilson teamed with Columbia photographer Edward Leeming to produce an atlas of the fertilization and karyokinesis of the ovum. This book had the first published photographs that showed details of cell division in Nereis, including clear images of the dividing chromosomes. A year later, in 1896, Wilson published the first edition of The Cell in Development and Inheritance. Together, these two books secured Wilson's place as a founder of what he later called a many-sided cellular biology, to distinguish it from traditional cytology. From 1905 to 1912, Wilson contributed a series of 8 studies on chromosomes to the Journal of Experimental Zoology. There he detailed what each chromosome was doing at each moment of cell division and what the chromosomes actually contribute to the developmental process. He also wrote 2 more editions of The Cell, which became the classic way for students to learn about cell biology. Wilson served in leadership roles and as a key member of many scientific organizations. Of these, he said that the most important for him was his role as first investigator and later instructor at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole. Imagine having been taught cell biology under E.B. Wilson. I see what you mean, Professor Wilson. I can just see those cells. Isn't this exciting? The discoveries that Wilson was able to unravel during his time were incredible. After his retirement, Wilson continued as a trustee at the MBL. With his wife, Ann Maynard Kidder, who he met one summer in Woods Hole. He had a daughter, Nancy, who became a professional cellist and who often played with her father, both in Woods Hole and in New York. Wilson was well recognized for his work, including with membership in the National Academy of Sciences, honorary degrees from Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins, and Chicago, and many prestigious medals. In 1981, the American Society for Cell Biology began awarding the E.B. Wilson Medal as its highest honor. Edmund Beecher Wilson made monumental contributions to cell biology. He taught his students and colleagues how each part of the cell works, the fates of cells in the developing embryos, and the importance of chromosomes. His many detailed books introduced generations of students to cell biology. For these reasons, we continue to celebrate the life of Edmund Beecher Wilson at the Marine Biological Laboratory.